Your mother, God rest her soul, would not want to hear that another college football coach is making $10 million a year. That's another story. Appreciate y'all being here at Florida State Seminoles Live. And we've got much to talk about. Mike Norvell, the contract details have come out here in the last 48 hours. We will get to those. And of course, also the continued step for step with Florida State and the ACC in court, whether that's your court in North Carolina or your court in Florida. We got James Coleman here, of course, Den Media Group. We will give you more details on what James has going on. Chris Frazier, Spear Addicts, the place to be. We will have your show times listed where you've got to be this week for Chris, for James, and Georgitis. The Renegade Report, that's a must watch as well. We've got the best Florida State show. Why? These three. And then I add my 2 cents from time to time as well. So it starts back in court and what was filed on Tuesday. James, I'm just going to read the first couple paragraphs from ESPN, very short paragraphs, because, again, I was oblivious to what was going on here, this latest move. I can't keep up with this stuff coming out of Florida State. But the ACC filed a brief Tuesday in North Carolina in opposition to Florida State's motion to dismiss or stay its case. The latest legal filing before a scheduled hearing March 22nd, where both parties will make their cases in front of a judge. In Tuesday's brief, the ACC outlined why the case should play out in North Carolina, of course, reiterating it is the appropriate venue for dispute over a North Carolina contract to be decided. So make sense of that and then fill in the blanks for us.
Again, like I was saying, the ESPN being a part of this had to, come in and do what they needed to do as far as responding. And typically what happens is these guys, they wait to the last minute to be able to stretch these things out. That's typically how a lot of civil stuff goes down unless the court requires you to expedite the process. So ESPN coming in, showing up at the last minute, filing their 2 cents about why they believe Florida State is in the wrong, why they should be forced to stay. A lot of these different things is just, again, them doing what they're supposed to do on behalf of their client. Now, when it comes to, again, with the ACC and all these other different things, they're basically stating that the record should be sealed and that Florida State should not be able to divulge any of this information to anybody else. And that just shows that they did not really have a great understanding of who they were getting in business with in the first place. Or they just figured that if we do what we're supposed to do, we'll never get in a position where Florida State might be able to put us in a disadvantage. They're using words like trade secrets, which Coca-Cola has a trade secret. It's locked in a vault in Atlanta in the Coca-Cola Museum. And you can see it from the outside, but the only people who get to go in there is like only 1 or 2 people that can go in there and know the recipe to Coca-Cola. That's a trade secret because Coca-Cola has an original recipe that they don't want Pepsi to know. The problem with what ESPN is trying to make it seem like is that they have this secret sauce or secret formula to how they negotiate contracts, which should not be seen by anybody else, which is crazy. It's like if I sign a contract with you, Mark, and I say that, you know what, Mark, I don't need you to have an attorney look over that contract because of trade secrets. Like that nobody's ever done that before. That makes absolutely no sense. It's absurd. Specifically when a contract should, if they were as simple as possible, state, how do I get paid? What do I need to do in order to get paid? And how do I not get paid? And if things were that simple, nobody would be worried about it. But they're acting like they invented the words that go into contract law, and like this would make them be at a disadvantage with NBC, CBS, or Fox, or anybody else who's competing to go up against these different things. But again, by the nature of that and a bunch of other different things that I think George was talking about while we were off air, which just make more sense. Who signed the contract? Who's not supposed to sign the contract? There's rules. And to quote one of my favorite people, Winston and John Wick, rules are what make us different than the animals. Like without them, we'd be savages. So we have rules, we have bylaws. That's what governments do. And what ESPN is trying to pretend like they're not in business with the state of Florida government, which is what Florida State University is. We are a government institution. Now, the scary part, which they should have thought about when you made a shady business deal, is the fact that in the state of Florida, we have this thing again called Sunshine State laws. Now, if they were suing us or coming with a retort in the state of Florida courts, that would make more sense. But in North Carolina, where North Florida law doesn't necessarily take precedent in the state of North Carolina, unless you're a state of Florida business, which we are, you can't go and say, you can't go and say trade practices are here. Now, what they're going to have to do, even if they do it in the state of Florida, is they're going to have to discuss what are trade practices. What are your trade secrets? What is so scary that you can't have anybody know this, and it's going to mess up your business, which is going to happen in discovery if the judge doesn't throw it out and say Florida State needs to do this, which no judge is throwing this out. So at the end of the day, it's all posturing. It's all for show.
Chris.
Yeah, I mean that was extremely articulated in a great manner. I keep doing this thing on my show because there's just certain things that we get to say and there's certain things that we don't. The only thing that ESPN's worried about is ESPN. They're not worried about the ACC. They're not worried about Florida State. They're worried about how ESPN continues to do what they're doing, and that's therefore trying to control this sport, and therefore trying to control college sports. They know if they can get this sealed, that it kind of stops the information from coming out that anyone would want to know. Then you can start just using the analogy that that's a trade secret, or this is a secret, or that is a secret. So this needs to be sealed, that needs to be sealed. So that's before it comes out to the public eye. And when you get that justified in the beginning over the small things, which the thing that Florida State came out with that they didn't like was talking about the Swaffords and Swafford's son and Skipper when he was the president of ESPN. Those are the small things that if they get those sealed, then they can get things sealed before they hit the public eye. The issue is like James said, there's no judge they can't seal it because of the Florida or the Sunshine laws here in the state of Florida. So they're doing their due diligence. They're doing what they feel is going to win the public's eye or try to at least persuade the public's eye. But when you've got people that, in my eyes, that are as ignorant that talk about sports as Paul Feinbaum, telling you that Florida State's got a case and Florida State's making the ACC look like garbage, Florida State's kind of hurting ESPN, said on his own show. When all of the big media people start saying what we've been saying for months about the case, but now you've got big media saying, oh, we think Florida State's last year in the ACC conference is 2024. We think that they leave as quick as 2025. They're only saying that because now they're finally hearing what we've already heard. And I don't really care, other than the fact that Florida State and their whole plan, whatever their strategy was going into this lawsuit, I guess it's unbeatable in a way because also all that's happened so far is the ACC and now ESPN, when they use the words like have they, has Florida State committed felonies, you're just making two really big entities look like asshats. That lets you know that you're winning. Usually when, kids get upset and you win against them in Monopoly Go and they can't flip the board over no more because there isn't one. And if they tear the phone up, you're going to tear their rear end up. So in the long story of all this of being short, ESPN's doing their due diligence to make ACC believe that they're on their side. Truth of the matter is all ESPN wants to do, which is a hypothetical conversation that could have happened over coffee, was therefore said, hey, Florida State, we could possibly get you out of the ACC conference, but we want you to come to the SEC because they don't want to lose the revenue from what Florida State brings to the table. And that conversation must not have went so great because then soon thereafter, they make a whole statement about, Florida State needs to stop talking about our trade secrets. Did they commit felonies? Blah, blah, blah. So it's just a bunch of hearsay. I'm not worried about what ESPN's got to say in the next one. They're using things to try to get it dropped in Florida, and they turn around and use the same opposites to try to get it to stand in North Carolina. They can try all they want. They signed the contract. They signed the grant of rights as well, Everybody says it's ironclad, blah, blah, blah. Well, they signed the contract that stated that if you were going to sue us, you had to do it within inside of the state of Florida. They sued us. They did it outside of the state of Florida. So who committed the felony? We'll find out soon enough.
Absolutely, man. Super articulate. I agree with everything they said. And like Chris said, I don't think a lot of people realize, yes, Florida State is in an unbeatable situation just because, say, the ACC gets their way, they totally win. Florida State is either loses or forced to cower and take a bad settlement. It just means that Florida State's going to have to pay $500+ million to get out. That's just the absolute worst case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, it's an untenable situation. This stuff is for show. We've all stated our opinions. We don't think it's ever going to get discovery. So all this stuff is just about playing the media, playing the narratives out there so they can, whichever side can win that settlement. And is one of the main points I wanted to bring up. As far as this specific filing, it was Florida State's motion to dismiss in North Carolina is what the ACC was trying to get dropped to defeat. Basically what these guys said is, okay, well, in the bylaws, it says that, it has to be the board of trustees. A president or a single administrator can't go and sign off on some giant grant of rights deal, et cetera, et cetera. But within the grant of rights, it gives him that power to make that call. So basically, unilaterally, the president of the university is able to sign a new, executive order without, it being approved by the board of trustees. So it's a whole can of worms with that. That's one particular part of it. Another part of it, ESPN, ACC, etc. They're kind of challenging the Sunshine State laws, like James was alluding to. But this is North Carolina. They're basically just saying that's why we need to have this thing in North Carolina, because these Sunshine State laws say this and that. But as far as the side in Florida, which isn't the exact part we're talking about now, you're not going to defeat those Sunshine State laws. It's been going on for too long. There's way too much precedence there. But it's just really funny because the ACC, they basically literally, it's the exact reciprocate of their arguments to dismiss the case in Florida is what they use in North Carolina. So if you're to believe the ACC and ESPN are being forthright, then you should throw both cases out, because they have no right to get one dismissed and they have no right to take the other one to trial. Just going literally on their words. It's just a big gaslighting. Everything is he said, she said, and using jargon to try to twist things. But I think it's pretty clear to everybody kind of exactly what's, transpired here, and Florida State will be out soon.
I'm still hung up on this trade secrets plea, because I am far from an expert when it comes to trade secrets. I'm far from an expert when it comes to legalities. However, trade secrets are generally, James' example was Coca-Cola, for things that involve technology, that involve invention, science, things that have a specific and very technical order to them that were invented or devised in some way. Trade secrets. Now, when I was at ESPN, there were certain things that we were sworn to secrecy involving trade secrets that were either creative properties or operational strategies and so forth. But in terms of trade secrets that involved negotiations for a TV contract, I just don't, I can't fathom what that would be. What would be a trade secret within a, and again, I might be missing something here, but I just think that's a big stretch, most likely.
I can read the definition real quick, the kind of bullet points. It's something that's not generally known to the public, confers economic benefit on its holder because the information is not publicly known, and where the holder makes reasonable efforts to maintain its secrecy. While you can kind of apply some things there, I don't have the precedents off the top of my head, but it's just been defeated over and over and over throughout the years that contract language and laws is just simply, it's not a trade secret. This thing gives no benefit to the ACC and ESPN because it's not known, other than just the fact that it's like trying to trick people. Like you said, there is no secret ingredient. There is no way that they make the sausage. It's just they don't want people to know how bad they lied, because the fact that they lied and put forth these things and made these deal behind closed doors. I'm curious to have each other's opinion on it, but I don't think it even comes close to applies outside of just jargon and trying to confuse semantics with definitions, because it's not a trade secret to me.
I think you remove the word trade, and they want their secret sealed,
Facts.
and they're using their terminology of trade secrets based off of, like James said, it's their trade secrets about how they negotiate contracts and the contracts that have been put forth. The reason that they're getting so entitled to that trade secret of negotiation is because of, like I've said this before, there's 4 in particular schools in the ACC conference that somehow don't have an endowment as large as Florida State's or some others, that don't contribute to the conference near as much as Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and some others. And what they're wanting to keep secret is, how did these 4 particular schools end up with standalone football facilities, renovations, X, Y, and Z without it being on the book? Where'd the money come from? Who spent the money? Was it from donors? Did you get extra money from the ACC conference that you wasn't supposed to get because you voted a certain way? What emails were sent between you and the ACC conference where you'd be allowed to build a standalone facility without it being on the books for public knowledge? The things are there, and that's what they're wanting to keep secretive. That's why I said on my episode, when the bomb drops, which the same way that we did when we were talking to Japan back in the day, we told them, hey, we're going to drop this bomb. And it's going to do X, Y, and Z to everybody. Here's your warning. You can basically give up, or we're going to drop it. Well, whomever, and it goes to Hiroshima or whatever, how you say it. We dropped 2 in totality, but we warned on the first one. We still had to drop it. I don't think that's the case with this, because this is an atomic bomb of information. And I think that exactly what it is they were going for their last stretch to try to stop the possibilities of whatever and whomever traded money to whomever for them to get standalone facilities and so on. And yes, all of this is hypothetical, because I can't sit there and say who's told me that. But the long story of it, the short, is there's some really shady stuff that's been done in the past tense of when the grant of rights was re-signed in 2016. There's a lot of different things that took place that people aren't talking about and haven't talked about. It's also the reason why the ACC doesn't want to release the grant of rights to the public and make it public knowledge, because there's some things in it that was never finished. It's not an executed full copy in my eyes until proven otherwise. So it's, to me, it's very simple. If you can get little things like this analogy of trade secrets of how you do X, Y, and Z, then you can get everything sealed. Anything and everything that you want sealed, you can do it, because you can therefore apply the definition of what George just read off to almost anything. You can apply that to almost anything that you talk about. So we'll see what happens, but Florida State's getting ready to drop a bomb, whether people want to believe it or not. People are saying that I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. Call me what you want. Told me the same thing when I told you 2 years ago that Florida State was going to the Big Ten. I was told it was a dream. It was us wishing upon a star. I got all the receipts for it. So when it happens is when those things will get released. But the fact of the matter is, you called me that 2 years ago, and now everybody's agreeing that Florida State's last season to play in the ACC is 2024. I'm sorry that James, myself, and there was a few others 2 years ago that told you that was the case. Nobody wanted to believe it then. We were just a bunch two kooks talking about sports and wanted clicks. Now, how kooky do we look? How bad do we really need clicks? I don't know if y'all pay attention to everybody else's views, but we ain't doing too bad our damn self.
And I'm making no accusations here, but just stating 2 facts. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. So, Chad Swafford, the ACC commissioner at the time's son, was working at Boston College. And also we've got John Wildhack, who was the head of programming at ESPN and took over as athletic director at Syracuse. So those connections are a bit speculative as well.
Uh-oh, Mark, you're doing too much digging.
Yeah, it's their nepotism and their kind of backstage stuff is just so out in the open and obvious that it's just like that's why it's like there's just no way we're getting to that discovery. There's just so many skeletons buried, and for Wake Forest and North Carolina and these schools, and we won't get into the 4 schools that it's possible, up to what Chris is alluding to, hypothetically being possible, but all of a sudden, all these people, especially like North Carolina and Wake Forest, a year later, all of a sudden they flip. They're on Florida State's side after all these years of voting the other way and all these things. It's like, where there's smoke, there's fire, my friend. Just can't wait till that bomb gets dropped finally that Chris alluded to. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Real quick.
Nothing wrong with nepotism unless it's incompetence involved. Nothing's wrong with nepotism unless incompetence is involved. And this is just, unfortunately, and if I were ESPN, that's the real reason I wouldn't want it to be seen, because it shows that we had that they had a big role to play in some major incompetence. So that would be the main thing.
Hey, James, before we got to wave goodbye, let people know what you've got going on this week.
Right now I'm in Indy. Life has been crazy. I've got a ton of content that I'm going to attempt to keep pushing up. We had interviews with Jared Verse. I'm actually leaving you, going to go do my own little combine day 1 wrap up, technically day 2, but day 1 for the players recap. There was it's funny how quick people can get tied into journalistic. I don't want to say the guy didn't have integrity, but he phrased the question very interesting, and Jared Verse answered it, and it was about the bowl game and opt-outs. And he literally asked all 5 FSU players about opting out of the bowl game, and none of them were in a good state. But all 5 guys did very well. We also have Leonard Taylor sound as well. We're gonna kind of go break that down, talk about these guys, and then we'll see some good performances tomorrow when it comes down to the overall thing. But the cool thing is to hear all. I'm not sure we'll hear great things from all 12, but we heard a lot of great things from all 5 that came on today in their experience in Florida State. A lot of talk about development. A lot of talk about who Mike Norvell is. A lot of talk about hope for the future and the talent that is there. A lot of good things that were said. Indy is a great place. I encourage everybody, if you ever get a chance, it's probably somewhere you want to go to the combine. They have the fan experience now, so you don't even have to be media. You could just you'll miss the videos, but it's boring. That's what guys like me are here for. Let us go listen to that stuff and post it on social media. But the exciting stuff will take place tomorrow, and it should be kind of cool. I'll probably be doing some lives with with Papa Deloach and Papa Bethune. We're gonna go watch their baby boys go out there in the underwear Olympics and see how well they do. But it should be some good, candid audio with us just sitting there laughing and chewing the fat.
Nice. Looking forward to it. I love the NFL Combine.
DIN Media Group. Go to DIN Media Group to check all this stuff out. My bad. I can't stream live from the combine. That's how you get shut down. But what I can do is we'll record some of this stuff and we'll post it up later. But what we will be doing again is I'm going to try to get the 2 dads. Ain't nobody going to have that. So, and it's a shame. Not Sporadics and Renegade Report. We're basically all part of the same, what do they call us? Unreputable portion of the fan base. But when you have 12 guys hit the combine, right, and you've covered these 12 guys, most of them, for the better part of 3 to 5 years outside of Fisk and Keon and Jaheim, you would think that all these guys that truly love Florida State, as much as money as they make, they would come up here and get some damn audio and some video outside of. But I will say, Florida State's internal social media out here working hard. They got this little girl with this, she didn't know what I was talking about because she hasn't seen the movie Aliens, which made me feel old. But she has this aliens contraption thing with like a little with that shows the video, and it has like a microphone, but it looks almost like the microphone's dangling in front of her like a carrot. But she's like out there and getting good audio and video, and they're putting stuff out there, man. So I'm happy for I'm happy. It's very a proud moment, and we'll get the 2 Gators as well. There are only 2 of them here. There are 5 Hurricanes. We'll get those guys too. I'm going to ask them some questions that people are going to think I'm trolling, but I'm literally asking them the same exact questions that I asked the Florida State guys. It just sounds different when your team's not any good. So, but it's not to put them on the spot. It just doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well. So, Din Media Group, if you want to check out any of that action.
Awesome. Thank you, James. No, you got a ton going on. Thanks for dropping by as always.
All right, Mark.
I was in Indianapolis last summer for the Big Ten Media Days. Absolutely. Good times. Before we continue the conversation, let's go around the horn with the latest. Chris, Sunday, 4:30 Eastern, Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. What's going on this week?
Well, if I actually get moved by Thursday, we're going to have a pretty good show with a couple of NFL Noles that are still playing in the NFL. That's the plan. As long as I'm moved. If I'm not moved, I'm not going to do it. I'll just do a regular show because I want it to be set up a certain way for these guys. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. And if it doesn't happen Thursday, it'll be Monday.
George.
So we'll see.
Man, I love the sound of that, guys. You got to be on the lookout. That will be an amazing one. But yeah, the Renegade Report, we're running strong right here on YouTube at the Renegade Report. You guys get over there and like and subscribe. We had an awesome episode yesterday. It was my birthday. We had on Bill Farley from Bill Follows the Money, billfarley.substack.com. He did an awesome breakdown on Project Osceola and financing Florida State to the Big Ten and all that good stuff. We had him and Tony Altimore on. But just continuing to pump out episodes. Stuff starts to pick up as we get towards spring camp. Again, that's at the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. Go check us out. We are Sundays, Tuesdays, and Fridays every week. Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 Eastern.
Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh were 2 of the highest paid coaches in college football and have been for the last several years, but they decided to do other things. One is going to go enjoy himself or work for ESPN as well. And then you got Jim Harbaugh moving on, of course, to the NFL. Mike Norvell, it's been known for quite a long time, renegotiated his contract, but we got more details into that in the last 48 hours as he becomes the latest George in the $10 million club. So any thoughts about Mike Norvell's reward for going, 23 and
4? Yeah. Man,
yes.
it's well-deserved. I've seen some people question it and talking this and talking that. When you look at the top 10, I believe there's like 4 or 5 of them that are tied there for 5th place. And Mike Norvell's right there at 10 million. And there's, I think Dabo's that may be 11 or a little over, maybe one other guy is above that 10 million mark, but it's well deserved. And people just think Mike Norvell and he's kind of an upstart. This person should be getting paid more than this person. You mentioned it. Jim Harbaugh moving off to the NFL. Chip Kelly quits, becomes a coordinator. You've got all these things going on. Florida's coach is a lame duck. Cristobal, he ain't getting a big raise, even though he started out at 8 million. When you look around the country, Dabo Swinney's kind of, on the way out. When you talk about the top coaches of the game and who's set up to win that next championship and top coaches around the world, Norvell's right up there with them, man. I can't say there's a single coach I would trade for him. I'm obviously a homer and all in, but I think what he's doing and what he provides from a roster management perspective with the portal and his evaluations and his forward thinking when it comes to deciding to keep the continuity of the staff together. And all of a sudden you have all this mayhem. And it was the absolute perfect move. The shuffling of the bottom of the roster and bringing in 10 blue chip, transfers. He deserves every penny. And if they could have he's probably worth more, if we're being honest, to what he brings to the program. But for in this current market, I have no problem. And I think he's right where he should be. And there's already plans. I talked about that episode we did with Bill Farley in the FOIA documents that were released, they already have penciled in, I believe it's by 2030, him being up to around 12 million. They've got additional raises for the staffs already penciled in to come forward. And that's without, you make a playoff and you renegotiate and go from scratch. All that stuff's already laid out. So he will be one of the top paid coaches in college football, just as long as he's at Florida State. If Michael Alford or the current administration has anything to do with it.
Any thoughts out of you, Chris, in this direction?
I'd say about 2 more years, you'll see it get renegotiated again. He'll move up. I know people don't necessarily want to hear that every 2 years that your coach is going to, I mean, guys, since he's been here, okay, he got here, every 2 years he's getting a bump. Why is he getting a bump up in his pay raise? Well, he has proof of product. He does a very good job in the portal. This is the best class he's brought in as a head coach anywhere this past season, which I'm going to go with the On3 rankings, which is now at number 7. And then this year is probably going to be even better, where people don't want to believe that either. And then not to mention recruiting and portal and all of those things, development, all of those things matter. But what matters the most, what you get paid for as a head coach, is to win. He's done a phenomenal job over the past 2 seasons for sure. Your program's been on the trajectory of being better and better and better each year. How do you get better than 13-1? Well, you get the opportunity to play for. In the playoffs, you get the opportunity to play for all of it. So there's much to do under Coach Norvell. And I can tell you this, that Coach Norvell's not looking to win one national title, and he feels like he's accomplished his coaching career. The amount of money that was brought in, given to him was because there was a particular team in the Alabama Crimson Tide that was trying to call him and get him to come there. We got to quit acting like these things don't happen because we hear trolls say, oh, they didn't want him. Okay. I can tell you that Mike Norvell got a phone call from Alabama multiple times. I can promise you that. Well, that's because Sexton did his job, the agent for all the coaches just about in college football. Yeah, he did his job, but you still got to be wanted. You still got to do a decent job for anybody to want you. So the raise, well-deserved, needed, and also what was also in the contract, a lot of people aren't talking about, is how much money is going to be given to the football program to hire off-the-field staff so that the staff becomes more elite than what it is. And it's already starting to show just how bringing in these few guys have done, helping out Odell when it comes to defensive tackle, helping out the offensive line when you talk about, which nobody's seeing this yet, but they will. You brought in a couple of off-the-field offensive line guys. They're going to really help recruiting as far as offensive linemen go. There's just a banner of how many things that this contract really meant other than just $10 million. There was a big portion that was allotted to him and how things he could change in the program and make it better than what it was. So they're trying to keep Mike Norvell for the long term. They want to keep him as long as they possibly can. And as long as you keep treating him right and you keep giving him the things and the resources that he needs, he won't go anywhere for a long time. That's what we look forward to.
And he was underpaid. I mean, people forget. You think about, he came in here as a G5 head coach. So that goes part of it. He has to learn on the job. He was willing to take, I want to say it was around 4.5, 5 million coming here. And the situation, like, it was like, as great as Florida State is, everybody knew that was going to be a tough spot to get in. So I have zero issues. Like Chris said, Alabama definitely wanted that guy. And Sexton's job is to get Alabama to believe that they truly have a shot and get Florida State and Alabama to actually bid against each other. But it definitely not BS in the interest on Alabama's part. Mike Norvell is that guy. And even though, like Chris said, the trolls on X may not believe it, or, even 247 different sites may not believe it because they're invested in their current, ratios and formulas for how they come up with talent. Mike Norvell's eye for talent and what, constitutes a winning roster in 2024 is elite, and the people that really know behind the scenes and spending money understand that.
The top 10 I'm looking at has Kirby Smart at 11.25 million, Dabo Sweeney at 11.10.5, Lincoln Riley at 10 plus, Mike Norvell at 10, Brian Kelly at 9.5, Mel Tucker at 9.5. That's in dispute in court. Ryan Day at 9.5, Matt Rule at 9.25, Lane Kiffin at 9, Mario Cristobal at 8. There are two obvious names besides Mel Tucker, who's gone obviously at Michigan State, that have yet to earn that money. So all those guys have achieved to some degree at a high level, except, of course, Matt Rule at Nebraska only has one season in there at 5-7, and Mario Cristobal with, I believe, 12 wins and 13 losses in 2 years at Miami. So he has yet to earn his money.
Yeah, you know what's cool about it is I think it was two of the names that you had stated that were ahead of Coach Norvell and others, as in Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney being the 1 and 2. It sounds like what they have that Mike Norvell don't have was missing: national championship. That's it. That's what separates him and them. You see how it's done, everybody? You win national titles, you get paid more. Okay, so you got to get to that point, right? All right, just making sure everybody understands.
Facts.
Yes, that counts for a lot. There have been a couple coaches that have kicked around, a la Jimbo Fisher and Mac Brown, who had success after their national championship, but nowhere close to what it was with a national championship. But they won that ring, and so that really propelled them for a lot of money for a long time. And Texas A&M finally got off that train this off season and paid up more than anybody has by far. All right.
Jimbo got his payday for sure.
One of these weeks during the off season, I want to get, we talked about this a couple of years ago with another group, but I would love to get both of your takes on what went wrong under Jimbo Fisher, because obviously it was going so well. But that's for another show at another time. Would love to dig into that story because I know that there are a ton of factors involved. Some were his fault and others were not. And obviously went downhill, even though he still had a ton of talent on the roster when he left there in 2017. There was a 12-team playoff that we already knew was in place. However, with the demise of the Pac-12, it had to be adjusted, and that was announced 3, 4, 5 days ago, something in that range, to the 5 top conference champions, which is going to, no question, every year fall into the power conferences, and then the best of the group of 5, and then the 7 at large. But there's also talk immediately after that was released to say, we've got our format, this is what it's going to be, that this thing could expand to 14. Folks, if you want to see some of my videos on the main channel, I've got some theories as to why that would be pushed by one conference in particular. And I think that'll make sense to you. But you guys have any thoughts about whether that's the 12 team and how it was tweaked this week and that announced, or a 14 team? Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think my biggest pet peeve with the college football invitational committee is they keep trying to find ways to make it easier on themselves. We move it to a 12-team format, and then we go, oh, well, we're already ready to move it to 14 now. Guys, make a decision. Like, how many indecisive of these 13 are sitting up there that can't figure out? Well, I don't want to tell, potentially this Big Ten team or this SEC team that they're left out because, this G5 team did, they won their conference, or they did this, or we got to get more teams in there so it's, less of a problem. I mean, let's be honest with why they're doing it. 1, you make more money. 2, you don't have to make as hard decisions. Like, you don't have to, between 12 and 13, right, in the rankings. Who do you leave out? Who's better? No head-to-head. No this, no that. They got to make a decision. They got to be very indecisive. They don't like having to make decisions. Like, isn't that what a committee is for? Is to make these decisions that nobody else wants to? And you supposed to have a format and statistics and all of these things that tell you why this team should be better than this one and why they get in and that one doesn't. But to me, they just keep pushing or kicking the can down the damn road because, yeah, they did the 4 team for 10 years, maybe 11, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden they get so indecisive because of the backlash that they get. Well, this is your job. Now, if you quit letting ESPN tell you how to do it, maybe you'd be all right. But you're indecisive because you want to know what's going to make the most money. And sometimes that means you got to leave out a 13-0 Florida State team, put in Texas and Alabama. That's a terrible decision to make, but someone's got to do it. That's what they're still scared of, regardless if you got 12, 14, if it moves to 16, which I hope it doesn't. But if it moves to 14, I think that should be your max. But I think they get crazy enough to move it to 16. But that should be just, we got to stop somewhere. We might as well just start the season in the playoffs. Everybody's playing for their spot. Technically, you're supposed to be doing that in the regular season. So I don't know exactly what to say, Mark, as far as the format goes. I kind of take it all with a grain of salt because I have to. Who knows how many different scenarios are going to come out. Well, we're also looking at this, we're also looking at that, and they add these rules and they add those rules, and who knows where it's going to be. Who knows if we have 11 SEC teams and one Big Ten team. That's not supposed to be able to happen, but hell, who knows? With this committee and how indecisive they are, we might try to find a way to play the San Francisco 49ers because they just can't win a Super Bowl. So give them an opportunity at a national title. Why not? I don't know. I just want them to if you're going to be the bad guy, do it every year. If you're going to be the indecisive, just non-complete, like we don't know what to do, oh, it's getting harder or whatever, just play your role, whatever it is, and keep doing it because the back and forth is getting really old. It feels like I'm on a roller coaster and I don't want to be on it.
Yeah, man. It's like when you sit down at a blackjack table and the guy next to you hits on 16 and then the next hand he holds and then he hits and then he holds. Or he's been hitting all night and then he holds and you get the wrong card the next time. It's like, dude, just whatever you're going to do, be consistently. See, any kind of consistency would be nice. But I agree with everything Chris said about the 5+7 model. The Pac-12, that's just hilarious. It's down to the Pac-2. I think the deal here, as far as going to 14, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think you go any farther than 12. I think if you want to add playoff teams, if you want more people to be in it and have a shot at the end, I believe if you want to add teams, you add those playoff games to within conferences. Whether you want to have the conference champion and then, whatever, a consolation game between the 2 and 3 teams to see who that second at-large bid is going to be to have a shot to win it, or vice versa. But like Chris said, I think it's just there's a means to an end. The regular season games are supposed to mean something. So yeah, there's no need to expand it, especially with where we're headed with the Big Ten and the SEC doing this alliance. With the NCAA on the outs, we're going to a Power 2. We're going to a new commissioner. Everything's going to change. This whole thing is going to be redone. So the fact of trying to squeeze out as many dollars as they can to make it 14 here in the next couple of years, I'm not with it. I'm all for the 5 and 7. I'm just fine with it. But I am curious to see what will happen when you have, say the Big 12 champion is 7 and 5 and unranked, and you've got 2 ranked G5 teams. Are they going to put 2? Are they going to put the Sun Belt and the ACC conference champion in? Because it's not spelled out that it's, the 4 bigs and then one of the small. So there's all that built in, and I guarantee the playoff committee will, they'll still be able to piss off somebody within that, and that's where the 14 pressure will come and get pushed through. So it almost makes you wonder if they decided they were going to screw Florida State for the playoff, but so they could expand it. But that was already done before this year started. I guess it depends on how far back you want to go with the conspiracies on that. But yeah, that's it. Sorry.
And again, folks, I got a ton to say on this, so I won't even get started on this, but I've got all sorts of videos, live streams. Check them out over on the main channel concerning my thoughts on the playoff changes. When does spring practice start?
March 19th, I believe they kick off in earnest at Florida State. Yeah.
All right, March.
We're getting there. And then the spring game will be April 20th. So 15 practices. I think they actually released the schedule of when the practice days and stuff will be today. Seems like a long ways out, but we damn sure can't wait.
Oh, yeah, it's coming. Who do you think is the most likely out of the 2024 commits to make a splash this fall, and therefore probably going to start to make his splash in 3 weeks during spring practice?
I guess I'll take it. We've talked about this a lot. Cam Davis is a name that really, really sticks out, just kind of with his size and the type of runner he is. I think he could have a pretty dang good freshman year. As far as spring camp in particular, I'm really, really interested to see what Malik Benson does and how he transfers immediately. And Roydell Williams. I know that's three names, but I'll be quick with it. Those are three names that I'm really, really looking to see. And I think Cam Davis, as far as a true freshman, he might be that Conrad Hussey from last year that really goes out there and shines.
So was the question, who's going to stand out the most this spring?
Well, I'm basically looking for a guy that's new to school, a 2024 commit that's got a chance to be an impact true freshman.
I would say who my catch is. It would be between Cam Davis, but the one that I personally think stands up and like really surprises not just Florida State, but surprises college football is Camden Fryer. That's the wide receiver. His dad used to play here, so did his uncle. It's just because of what he did at Tour of Duty. This kid's just different. I don't know what else to say other than that he's got it. He's figured it out. He knows what he's doing. His breaks and routes, just his abilities all together. But when he puts his brain behind it, which he's very smart, understands the playbook already, and I think everybody's going to be really surprised with him. So that's who I would pick as far as 2024 guy.
Is there any recent rumblings under the surface regarding 2025? Anybody out there that's close to making a decision?
Well, what I will say is this. Florida State, and we'll say it, was this the fourth time, I think? Florida State's going to have a top 5 composite offensive line class in the 2025 class. Top 5 composite offensive line class. If anybody needs to replay that, top 5.
Believe it, and I'm with him. I totally agree. I think what you're seeing, you're not so much one specific guy. It's kind of early, but you're seeing like a lot of these guys, all these top guys. You're seeing a lot more Florida State in the top 4s, top 4 here, top 4 there. It's flipped, and like Chris said, is look out for that offensive line haul, to be absolutely amazing. And once we get into June and July, the recruiting and stuff will really pick up. But they're doing a good job. The one thing I will say about this class, they're doing a really good job of specifically like at the linebacker position, casting a wider net for more blue chip kids, and also with offensive line, as Chris alluded to, having that top offensive line class. They're in it for a lot of these top names that a lot of years, you wouldn't get the time of the day as you built up. And guys that can come in here and possibly have a contribute earlier and earlier. So stay tuned. And actually we're going to have Pat Burnham on, I think Tuesday from Rivals. So we'll have a good recruiting conversation about that Tuesday.
Well, for a guy that's been sitting here for 252 episodes, I think maybe offensive line woes and underdevelopment and under recruitment has been talked about more than anything over 5 years. So that has changed considerably. If there's one position group, and that would be a tough argument and debate to have, that Mike Norvell has addressed most successfully, it would be the upgrade of the offensive line. And it's apparently going to continue.
Thank you. I'll take it I'll take it for Norvell, because the only thing that anybody wants to talk about is how we've recruited that position. Here's the thing that I'm not understanding with the fan base, and this is all fan bases, not just Florida State's. We act like the transfer portal is just not in existence. It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how we recruit these positions in high school. Not saying that doesn't matter. Not saying that it matters less than it did before. But what matters more is that you do both of them at least good. You have to do good in the portal and at least good in high school recruiting. I think Mike Norvell's either done great in one, good in the other, and good in one and then great in the other. And everybody wants to talk about, well, we ain't got this guy, we didn't develop this guy, we didn't do this. but nobody wants to pay attention to what we have done. Everybody's always worried about what they don't have instead of seeing what they do have. Count your blessings, people, because if you just look next door, down the street, in the same state, look what the University of Florida is going through. Miami's best season in the past 2 or 3 years is 7-5. Excuse me. What is it that they have that we don't? Supposedly, Miami recruits their what's off. How is that indicated in the game day against Florida State for the past 3 years? How has that worked out? That's all I'm asking. Their roster is so great. I can't wait. Okay. We've said that every year since 2002. Every year. Miami's back. Every year since Florida with Urban Meyer won with Tim Tebow. Florida's going to be that gauntlet again. It's coming. It's coming. How many head coaches has Florida had since Urban Meyer left? Ugh. We aren't going through the same things. The similarities are as we had 5 bad seasons. That's true. We all know why. Now you see all of it get flipped, and it starts working, and we still want to talk about what we don't have. I want to talk about what we do have because I see what everybody else don't have.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
I think the issue that a lot of fans have is that they're excited about the transfer portal news. So that's always forefront, okay, and it's easier to get excited in a sense for some of those guys because they've proven it at the college level. So you get Keon Coleman, you can say, boom, guy caught 60 balls at Michigan State. Look at what he's shown us on tape against Big Ten defenses. You get excited about that. But for some reason, when it comes to looking at recruiting rankings, everybody still just goes to the high school recruiting rankings and says, okay, where are you? And that's the end of the discussion there. They haven't merged the two. They get excited about transfer portal news, but when they talk recruiting, it's all just, where's your high school ranking?
And they want to say, oh, well, he's got no stats in college, this or that. You rode the bench at Bama his freshman year. It's like, okay, so these guys coming out of high school, how much college experience do they have? And it's like, oh, well, it's just the high school rankings that matter. It's always, still 80% high schoolers in the first round. Yeah, but just for like all transfers came from high school, right? Is there some homeschooling out there that's going on, or like people that don't get recruited out of high school and they just become transfers, or like? So yeah, it's ridiculous. And the thing that gets me is 247 made them 4 stars. Literally, we signed 10 blue chip transfers, but then you don't get credit for them. Meanwhile, Miami brings in 21. But anyways, this is something that I could talk about, and I have talked about 100 million times. But it was fun, man. I totally agree with you guys on that.
So George, one more time, what do you've got going this week?
At the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. We had billfarley.substack.com on last night, doing an awesome episode. We don't have anything set up for Friday or Sunday, but we do have Pat Burnham from Rivals coming next Tuesday, and we will fill those slots. So just come check us out Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 Eastern and Sunday in the afternoons.
Chris.
Y'all just be on YouTube at Spirit Addicts on Mondays and Thursdays at 8 and Sundays at 4:30. Make sure that y'all go check out my guy Justin Hood, who just dropped a really good Knowles to the NFL article. Really detailed, did a great job. Make sure that you go to spiritaddicts@substack.com to check out his articles. He also writes for FS View, which is the school newspaper, which just went digital. He does a really good job, so make sure you give him a follow on X. It's Justin_Hood_. Make sure you check out all of his content as well.
Chris, thank you so much. You got a ton going on all the time, and specifically the last couple of weeks. So thank you for making the time. George, you as well. I know you're building your channel. Everybody supports Spirit Addicts, Renegade Report, Den Media Group. These guys are the best. James, wherever you are right now in Indy, you guys have made all this possible. So thank you for that. And we will make it on back here next Wednesday, everyone, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you, Mark. Let's go, baby. Go Knowles.